Dawn breaks over a narrow strip of water, and the sea is already full of ships that should not be this close together. Athens is empty. Its temples are ash. The Persian king has burned the city he came to conquer, and now his fleet, hundreds of warships strong, is closing in on a channel barely wide enough to hold them. On the far shore, the Greek commanders are arguing. Some want to retreat to the Isthmus of Corinth, where land forces can still make a stand. One man refuses to let them. His name is Themistocles, and he has staked everything on a single idea: that the greatest Persian advantage, sheer numbers, can be turned into their greatest weakness if the fighting happens in the right place. The place is a strait between the island of Salamis and the coast of Attica. It is narrow, it is shallow near the edges, and if the Persian fleet is forced to fight inside it, its size will not matter. The question is whether Themistocles can force that fight before his own allies sail away. To understand why this narrow channel became the most important stretch of water in the ancient world, you have to go back several weeks. Xerxes, king of Persia, had already broken through the pass at Thermopylae. The road to Athens was open. The city was evacuated. Its people moved to the island of Salamis and the region around Troezen, watching from a distance as their homes burned. The Greek alliance was not united. City-states like Corinth and Aegina wanted to fall back and defend the Peloponnese by land, protected by a wall being built across the isthmus. Athens, whose fleet made up the largest single contingent of Greek ships, insisted on fighting at sea near Salamis, where their families now sheltered. Themistocles argued that retreating from Salamis meant abandoning the one geographic advantage the Greeks had left. In open water, the larger Persian fleet, a coalition of Phoenician, Egyptian, Cypriot, and Ionian Greek ships sailing under Persian command, could surround smaller Greek squadrons and use its numbers to overwhelm them one at a time. Inside a narrow strait, that advantage disappears. Ships cannot maneuver freely. Formations collapse. Numbers become a liability instead of a weapon. The Persian fleet itself was not a single unified force. It was assembled from subject peoples across the empire, each contingent bringing its own ships, its own crews, and its own level of coordination with the others. That difference, a coalition fleet against a smaller but more coordinated force fighting on familiar water, would matter far more than any raw number painted on a scoreboard. According to the ancient historian Herodotus, Themistocles made a decision that would either save Greece or destroy it. He sent a trusted servant across the water at night with a message for King Xerxes. The Greek fleet was divided, demoralized, and preparing to flee under cover of darkness. If the Persians moved now, they could trap the entire Greek navy before it escaped. Whether every detail of that story happened exactly as Herodotus describes remains debated among historians. What is far less disputed is the outcome. The Persian fleet moved to seal both ends of the strait during the night, and by dawn, hundreds of Persian ships were packed into a channel never built to hold them. Xerxes, according to ancient accounts, had a throne set up on the slopes of Mount Agalios, overlooking the strait, so he could watch his fleet destroy the Greeks and record the victory for history. Instead, as the sun rose, the Greek triremes began to withdraw, not in retreat, but in a controlled pullback that drew the lead Persian ships deeper into the narrow water. Then the Greek line turned and struck. Inside the strait, the Persian numerical advantage collapsed immediately. Ships crowded so tightly they could not turn. Oars tangled with oars. Frontline Persian vessels trying to reverse collided with the ships pressing in behind them. The Greek triremes, lighter and better coordinated in these waters, used their bronze rams to strike exposed hulls, then pulled back before enemy marines could board. On the small island of Citolea,
Inside the strait, a Persian garrison had been stationed to rescue their own sailors and kill any Greeks who washed ashore. Greek hoplites under the Athenian commander Aristides crossed the water and eliminated that garrison, closing off one more piece of the trap. By mid-afternoon, the strait was a scene of wreckage. Ancient sources describe hundreds of Persian ships destroyed, disabled, or captured, though the exact figures, like so much of this battle, are impossible to verify with precision. What survives clearly from multiple accounts is the direction of the disaster. The larger fleet broke apart in the very water that was supposed to guarantee its victory. Watching from the mountainside, Xerxes saw a fleet he had built over years unravel in a single day. Ancient writers place the Persian fleet at wildly different sizes. Herodotus claims over 1,000 ships at the start of the campaign, a figure most modern historians consider inflated well beyond what ancient shipyards and supply lines could realistically support. More cautious modern estimates place the Persian fleet at Salamis somewhere in the range of 600 to 800 vessels, still significantly larger than the roughly 370 to 380 ships the Greeks brought to the strait. Even using the more conservative modern numbers, the Persian fleet held a real numerical advantage, just not the overwhelming one later legend imagined. The battle was won by geography and coordination, not because the Greeks were secretly equal in numbers. The immediate military consequence was severe. With his navy broken and his supply lines by sea now vulnerable, Xerxes made a decision that changed the course of the war. He returned to Asia Minor with a large portion of his army, leaving his general Mardonius in Greece with a reduced land force to continue the campaign the following year. That land campaign would end at Plataea. But the sea campaign, the one meant to guarantee Persian dominance over the Aegean and support the invasion indefinitely, was finished at Salamis. The myth that survived longest was the idea of an impossibly outnumbered Greek fleet facing an almost limitless Persian armada. The reality, based on the more careful modern reconstruction of the numbers, was still an outnumbered Greek force, but one that used terrain, timing, and a single act of deception to turn a real but survivable numerical gap into a decisive victory. Salamis did not end the Greco-Persian wars. It ended Persia's ability to win them at sea. What happened next would be decided on land at a place called Plataea.